known as sort of lifetime indie, although he did take a small stint at EA.
6 years.
6 years.
On one
But
game.
he's truly an indie. All right. And Chris will be presenting our Duct Tape Award. All right, go.
We all here? All right, can we dim the lights again so we can see the slides? Please. Got it? All right. So this is my rant potential Unreached, but as they said, we have a piece of unfinished business as usual. And so the Duct Tape Award this year, so the Duct Tape Award is the award that goes, we're not going to discuss why it's called the Duct Tape Award, but the Duct Tape Award is the award that goes to the ranter of the previous year who we felt like did the best rant. And this year we're kind of cheesing out the way Time Magazine made you the man of the person of the year that year. So we're giving it to the concept of, because there were a couple we couldn't decide, the rant against myself. So accepting on behalf of the rant against myself is Justin Hall. Is he coming? Is he going to come up here? The quote was, "I was the CEO and I failed," and Paul Bettner, a similar rant against myself, said, "I saw it coming and did nothing to stop it." So we're going to apply.
So, Justin Hall, on behalf of the Rant section at GDC, I would like to present you with this award.
How many times around?
I can still breathe.
I've had fantasies about doing this at Justin Hall for years.
I'll see you at the sweet party. Okay. I can't see anybody. Can we get the lights back up?
Just mid halfway lights.
Who's here fired up to rant? Who is here because they want to be up on stage and they have something to say and something they're frustrated with and someone they're angry at and someone keeping them from making the very best games in the world? All right, I love the rant panel. I love the spirit that comes here. I love all the passion. The people are so full of life and have so much that they want to share and get off their chest. But the core of this rant panel exercise is so much about external oppression. The things keeping you from making the great games you want to make. And what I realized when I had the chance to join you folks up on stage last year was that, man, the number one thing keeping me from making great games is me. And that's my rant for you guys. It's like, what can you do? You have so much power in your hands right now because you can change you. And if you change you, man, you can do anything.
Can we level back up, please? All right. So, is it possible to dim the front but not make it completely pitch black? All right. So this is my rant potential Unreached. I thought that I was going to rant about gamification and how they basically ignore all the psychological research, completely misunderstand and misuse the term game mechanics, and can sell, tweet, and sell hype. But then I kind of realized that I actually don't give a fuck about people selling more or less shoes using badges and points. I really just don't care. It was really hard to kind of get it up to rant about gamification. Because I actually care about games as opposed to selling shoes and frequent flyer, whatever. So I was thinking about the rant about gamification kind of transformed into a rant about games. It was interesting because you think about social games as a panel and like kind of this milieu of ideas. And one person, a friend, Jane McGonigal, kind of, I have a ton of respect for Jane and I love her. And like, she talks about games to save the world, and I think that's an incredibly honorable thing to want to do. But in some senses, it's a means and ends thing. Jane, in some sense, sees games as a means to an end of saving the world. And that's a very lofty goal, and I wish her Rick a leg. Please save the world. Okay. All right, she'll be up here soon. I kind of see art and entertainment as an end in and of itself. I'm interested in making games for game's sake. And because I think art and entertainment is important for society in the same way that healthcare is important, in the same way that income distribution is important, in the same way that literacy is important. I think that having wonderful art and entertainment is incredibly important. Jane talks about the number of hours people spend playing online games, and from her TED Talk she was talking about 3 billion hours. And this actually doesn't bother me. The fact that most of these games are not very interesting is actually what bothers me. This time I put the disclaimer in the middle. If you're going to quote this on your blog, I really love games, and I enjoy playing them. For me, this is about potential unreached. So, in this potential unreached area, we have a lot of headroom. This is Velázquez's Juan de Pareja, which I think is one of the most amazing paintings in the history of humanity. Maybe this painting doesn't speak to you, maybe another painting does, or maybe like A Day in the Life by the Beatles, or a certain poem, or a piece of literature, or a film. The emotional bandwidth that most other art and entertainment forms have dwarfs ours right now. And I don't think this is an inherent problem. I think we can fix this. And so a lot of the especially this year, talked about gamification of life and how to add game mechanics into life and that kind of thing. And I think this has kind of backwards for our conference. I want to switch these around and come up with an even grosser term, which is the a friend of mine actually came up with this. I can't take total credit for this, but I think this lifeification idea of games is kind of where we want to go in the game industry. And what do I mean by this terrible, terrible phrase? Do not tweet lifeification of games, please. So I was at E3 this year, and while I was at E3, I'm working on my GameSpy party, and it's got a bunch of people holding drinks. And so I was working on the IK and technology that allows you to hold drinks. There's a lot of actually, computers are really stupid, right? And so you have to teach them how to do everything. So to pick up a drink, you need to have an IK solver, you need to have an AI system that can reason about the fact that there's something in the left hand as opposed to the right hand. So if I want to pick up something else in the left hand, I know I can't do that. It's just a giant pain in the ass, right? Making games sucks. But, so I'm doing this, and I'm walking around E3 looking, I'll just do some research, and how many other games, what other games are doing this. And the fact of the matter is I could not find a single other game besides The Sims where people even picked things up. This is incredible to me. What's the difference between Seinfeld and Friends? Here's another axis. Think about these two shows, and think about the differences you can think of. They both take place in an apartment in New York. They're both attractive people. Maybe the Friends people are cuter, maybe the Seinfeld people are older and more sarcastic, who knows? And you think about these in space, in the space of whatever space you measure the experience of watching Seinfeld and Friends. And no one who's a fan of either show thinks they're all the same, right? Like they're completely different TV shows. And you can kind of delta in this space, right? So what is the distance between these in whatever n-dimensional narrative / character space? And we cannot express this difference at all, the difference between these two shows. In The Sims, these are exactly the same TV show. There's a bunch of people in an apartment decorated in a certain way and people dress a certain way. The difference between these two things that are relatively powerful experiences for people, I'm not saying they're the best art in the entire world, but the difference lies, I tend to think of things in mathematical analogies, the difference lies completely outside our manifold. We're the ant walking around in this sphere, and the difference is orthogonal to that sphere. If they just become a point on that sphere, in the only game you can actually express them in is The Sims right now. So another way of thinking about this is the concept of gamut. So these are a bunch of TV monitors, different kinds of technology, that how they express color and how many colors in the RGB spectrum they can express, right? And art and entertainment forms have an emotional gamut, right? How much, and you want that gamut to be as big as possible. Now the gamut does not overlap necessarily that much between different, music expresses different emotions than film expresses different emotions than literature does, and that's fine. But for your art form, you want your gamut to be as wide as possible. Much like you want your TV to express as many different colors as possible. So how do we get off of our little sphere? And I think that it's not actually that hard. I think we need to have more human-scale interactions in games. It's a good start for doing this. I don't think we need any more aliens and orcs. I don't know if you can read it, but on the I didn't realize this until I put it on the slide. In the Aliens vs. Predator thing at the bottom, it says, "Whoever wins, we lose." And I'm totally behind that sentiment. So whenever I say we don't need any more aliens and orcs, I always get a stream of people posting in forums about how I don't understand the difference between content and mechanics and all this stuff. And so I want to have a brief word to address this issue on sci-fi and fantasy. So this is Philip K. Dick, Gene Roddenberry, and Rod Serling. There's actually two axes of my retort to this idea. These three people use sci-fi and fantasy to address issues that were simply not addressable without going to the abstraction of those of sci-fi in their day. They would have been censored, they would have been run off, they couldn't get to these topics. Okay? So But Chris, how do I know if I'm not, I want to put work in my game, and how do I know if I'm the new Gene, Phil, and Rod? Like, clearly, I mean, this work is just dying to get out. So first, you have to ask yourself 2 questions. 1, are you saying something personal as a designer with your work? Be really honest, or do you just like works? 2, if you're putting something controversial in your game of this sort, if you can remove it with a regular expression on your strings file, you're not doing it. Okay? So, Clint put like 6 pictures of me in his talk yesterday, so I felt like I had to return the favor. The second axis of rebuttal to this idea is that the aesthetics of the game, that the fictional skin is somehow separate from the mechanics, and you can just separate those out and talk about them completely different, is completely false. And for reference to that, I was in Clint's talk. So, adding human scale interactions does not have to be difficult to implement, nor does it have to result in casual games. So, I'm not making a casual game, and I have some of these in mind, but let's talk about games that people already know. Watch this with the eye of a programmer. That's the buggiest piece of shit 2-link IK solver I've ever seen in my entire life. But that mechanic is beautiful. It's one of the most powerful mechanics in the history of games, in my opinion. And it's just about 2 people holding hands. Here's another example from a more modern game. I'm too attached to my horse. My horse Shirley got shot by bandits, the bastards. I tortured them good, doused them in bait, and watched them get mauled by bears. I ride an American Saddleback now, and there's a noticeable difference. But given the choice, I'd rather have Shirley back. The bond between a cowboy and his steed is one that cannot be replaced. I'm always very loyal to my horses, and I try my best not to get them killed. However, if it is killed, I always skin it for hide and meat. There's no sense in having your trusty horse just lie there. In death, he can help you as with his body, just like in real life, waste nothing. We just have to try to do this stuff. It's not that hard. Thank you.
Okay, Scott John Siegel is the young buck